Hello, everyone. I'm John O'Loughlin. Welcome to McDuff Lives, and it's our Friday chat with Marcia. So let's get started. Welcome, everyone, to McDuff Lives and our Friday chat with the beautiful Marcia. Hi, Marcia.
Oh, good morning. Thank you for that. That was very sweet. Hello. Welcome, everybody. So glad to have you here with us.
Yeah, we have all the sun checking in. Great to have you as always, my friend.
All the sun says good day. Well, good day to you.
What a beautiful sun image there, the icon he chose. That's nice.
Yeah.
Because it's cold out there right now. I almost said a bad word.
I know.
But it is. It's effing cold out there.
I looked at the thermometer just before I came in here, 36 degrees.
Don't like it.
No.
Don't like it.
No.
Boy. Well, be a while before we see any warm weather. You know, we're going to be here through the holidays, and I see there's going to be a heat wave. It's going to hit us on Christmas Day, according to the weather prognosticators.
Oh, really?
So yeah, we can look forward to that. Nice warm Christmas Day. I'd rather have that than snow at this point.
Oh, me too. Me too. Because you know what? I remember in the years past going on a nice long walk around Mystery Island on Christmas Day. I don't know why we do that, but we do, and it's nice, and I like that. So it'll be good to know that we can do that again this year.
Well, I got a few things on my mind. How about you, Marcia? Anything you'd like to start off with?
I do. Well, I have things on my mind too, but I think that we should start with you.
With me?
Yes.
You know, the thing that bugs me the most is what's going on in the Caribbean with shooting the drug boats and with two different issues, but part of the same idea of seizing that oil tanker. The idea that the United States has carte blanche to do whatever it wants to around the world has kind of been the fact, but nobody's ever come out and said it as clearly as President Trump has. You know, and Secretary of War Pete Hegseth basically says, you know, we're going to shoot him down. We're going to kill him.
Right.
And that's not the American way. It's just not. What's behind it? Well, there's a lot behind it, I'm sure. It's not just about the oil in Venezuela. It's also, I think, about control of South and Central America directly by the American empire. And that goes back in history, you know. That reminds me of the Knights of the Golden Circle. If you don't remember the story, that a lot of the pre-KKK guys, you know, not only in the South but also in the Midwest, like Illinois and Indiana, and were members of a secret organization called the Knights of the Golden Circle. And their idea was to own the entire Caribbean rim, so that the northern part of it would be Louisiana and the southern states and Florida, but the southern part of it would be Colombia, Venezuela, what later became Panama, and all the islands in between. To what purpose? To have slave plantations. That was the Knights of Golden Circle, because
and what era are we talking about here?
1840s, 1850s.
Oh, okay.
You know?
All right. So there already were plenty of slave plantations that were in that area as well.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Just to grow them.
It was just an expansion, you know. And Mexico, you know, if you remember, after the Civil War, a lot of the Confederates that were able to get away marched down to Mexico, and that scheme was frustrated by our good friend John F. Kennedy when he made the deal about the Cuban Missile Crisis. See, in order to make sure that we had peace and got rid of the Russian nuclear weapons in Cuba, President Kennedy stated American policy was to never try to take Cuba. We're not going to try to change the government there. We're not going to invade Cuba. And that was the deal that Kennedy made. But lots of people not happy with that, man.
Right.
Because, they had the oil leases off of Cuba. They had all the organized crime.
Right. Well, they were, running the tourist industry up until Castro came in, and so they lost a lot of their tourism assets and all of the money that went with that, with the casinos and such.
So the idea of seizing this oil tanker is to deprive Cuba of the oil or the revenue they would get. I think that, as I understood, that they usually take oil from Venezuela and then sell it to Africa.
Mm-hmm.
But to take away that oil from Cuba at a time when it's wintertime and Cuba is, I thought they were rationing electricity down to just a few hours a day.
Are they?
So this, to me, sounds, if I put it all in a nutshell, is that this is the United States government trying to reverse the outcome of the Cuban Missile Crisis and get back to filibustering in the original sense of the term, where Americans would go down to Nicaragua and take over that state. And that happened way back in the 1920s or 30s.
Right.
So this effort by certain wealthy oligarchs, I think we could call them, if not just elites, is ongoing, and I think that's what it's about. It certainly is. It offends my intellect to be told that we are shooting these drug boats because they are terrorists. They're not terrorists. They're people that are trying to make a living,
indeed,
in the drug trade. So arrest them.
They're criminals.
Send the Coast Guard, pick them up, put them on trial. What's all this about? Is it a sop to the very right wing that just wants to kill all of them? Or is it a cover for the fact that they're never going to do anything about the real drug problem?
Right.
Well,
connect that, though. Connect the two incidents, the taking of the oil tanker and the attacking of the drug boats. Do you think that the attacking of the drug boats just gives cover for the real reason that they're there? That we are there, that our military is there in the Caribbean? That is to control the oil and to take back Cuba?
I think that it really is just something for the right-wing media to say, yay, Trump, Trump is killing the drug dealers. And I think it's as simple as that. But again, the drugs that come into this country from Venezuela, I think it's pretty minimal.
Right. Yeah, they're absolutely not coming in from Venezuela. In fact, those drugs in those drug boats were headed to Trinidad, where they go on to, they continue on east over to Africa and other destinations.
Yeah. Well, it's very interesting. The history of Cuba in the 20th century is one of revolution after revolution. And I'm watching a very good series on YouTube called Eyes Wide Open. I can highly recommend it. And the more recent video of it is showing that we had soldiers of fortune that were stealing arms from armories, bringing them down to Cuba and giving them to Castro when Castro was trying to fight against Batista.
Wow.
After we had previously armed Batista, of course. And then the next thing, the same American cowboys are arming Castro, so that they had armed both the Batista in order for him to take over. And then when Castro comes along, they arm him so he could take over. So to me, it's just a generation of chaos in the Caribbean, so that the pirates can come in. The pirates that hide behind legitimate businesses and legitimate military activity. That's my opinion.
Well, Garden Girl 24 says the Venezuela issue may break DJT.
That's
That's an
my concern too. I think if you wanted to give the Democrats an issue to win in the midterms in 2026, you could hardly do better than to give them this Trump shoots, not innocent, but drug boats. They're low level guys. They couldn't possibly be kingpins.
Well, yeah. I mean, they're not innocent. They're criminals, but they're being shot down without due process.
Yeah.
Corky says,
Hi, Corky.
American misused might my entire life. Righteous use of might can be called for. Enforcing under law. Anything less will have paybacks. Yeah, there you go.
And that's, just turning our country into another wannabe empire, branch of the real empire, and that runs by empire rules and not by the Constitution.
Brightmore Dinosaur says, despite its genocide in Gaza, Israel's plan for a local oil source hasn't advanced quickly enough for the boys in Genie Energy. Venezuelan oil for BB may be easier, less costly.
I do understand there's a lot of Israeli and Mossad involved in Venezuela right now. I'm told, I have read it's a large number. It's kind of a joint operation with Israel and the CIA or the rest of the military industrial complex.
As I understand it, the tanker that was seized was coming from Iran and was on its way to Cuba, but had been using deceptive practices to identify its location.
I was mistaken, and I thought it was a Venezuelan tanker. It was just.
It might have been. It was very, very weird. All of the countries involved, because it also was based out of Guyana, but then was carrying the Rwandan flag or vice versa. And it might be different countries, but it was very, very confusing. All of its different affiliations with nationalities, but also this whole thing about the deceptive use of reporting its location. So, and this is just one news source, so who knows?
Well, there is a lot of talk in the Ukraine war about killing Russian shadow fleet. Why they're called a shadow fleet, I'm not quite sure. Maybe it's the Russians that are flying under the flag of Liberia or Panama.
Oh, okay, yeah.
But there have been a number of incidents in which those vessels have been shot at and sunk and set on fire in the Black Sea and otherwise. The one off the coast of France a week or two ago, which looks like French Secret Service. So the Europeans are, I believe, undoubtedly fighting a covert ops war on behalf of the Zelensky regime.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah, that and stopping Europe from doing that, may be overall part of what Trump's policy is.
Interesting. Road Warrior says the greatest drug pushers are the AMA and Big Pharma itself. Millions of Americans hooked on non-addictive painkillers by Purdue Pharmaceutical, and nobody went to prison. Yeah, very true. Absolutely. I think they are definitely, they're the legal drug pushers, which, by the way, I read that Trump is going to ease regulations on cannabis and make it so that it is, he can't, I think what I read, he can't make it legal himself, but he can order less enforcement of
Take
the
it off the
regulations.
same schedule with opium.
Well, exactly.
and
Take it off the
cocaine.
same schedule and put it in the same schedule with legal painkillers. And of course, Brightmore says, speaking of legal drugs, Big Pharma is in panic mode and launching a campaign to oust RFK Jr. because of recent actions, comments. Yeah, well, I think they've been trying to do that for a while.
I wonder if the dangers of these VAX thingies that I shouldn't mention in particular name is bubbling up to the surface of the general public. You know, it's almost what I've been seeing on my feed for the whole 4 or 5 years now. This is bad. It'll mess you up in the future. It'll destroy things like your immune system. But again, I'm speaking as cryptically as I can because I don't want to lose this damn channel again.
Well, I think there's a lot of inconsistency from the administration as it relates to drugs because there are all of these legal drugs out there that Big Pharma is pushing that are doing enormous damage to Americans. So, how do we justify going out and killing the drug runners in cold blood without any kind of due process, but yet we're allowing all of these drug companies to make themselves quite wealthy by addicting people? And then also there is the inconsistency of all of the pardons. And, the fact that Trump just pardoned somebody who was in jail for drug running. So
a big guy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Kingpin.
Yeah. So, there is a lot of inconsistency about how drugs are addressed by this administration and previous ones as well. Because we do know that throughout recent history, recent to be defined, that the United States government has been involved in drugs in a number of different ways.
Oh yeah, and especially the off the books stuff that we've read about in Jonathan Quitney's great book, Crimes of Patriots, and otherwise the fact that the United States covert ops people, in conjunction with the Five Eyes and especially with MI6, are facilitating the drug deals and providing security for their transportation.
It's a good source of income for them.
This is how they've financed a number of their ops, because they got to pay the mercenaries. They're just hiring mercenaries.
Yep. Well, Garden Girl 24 says, back to oil. Could the oil capture link to energy? AI will be a big consumer. We are going head to head with China. Well, AI has been on my mind, given as I was calling it earlier today, the AIEO that Trump signed yesterday that prevents the states from making any regulations that limits how AI is developed. Going to be very interesting to see. And not only that, but he has directed an AI task force to be created, and that task force will create legislation for the United States Congress to pass that prevents states from limiting any AI development so that we can continue to build the AI economy and enrich the leaders of the AI industry who have financed his current role as president. Yes. I don't think that part is in the EO.
Yeah, but he is playing the role very, very nicely, isn't he?
Very, very nicely. And that ties, I'm fascinated by this because it ties into what you and Harley were talking about on Tuesday with the AI economy and the bubble bursting eventually and what's going to happen with that, which raises all kinds of questions about this executive order. And then, of course, in all jurisdictions all over the United States, there are all these discussions that are taking place about the development of data centers for all of this energy that is going to be needed to run these data centers. And then how do you build these data centers and how do you control them and how do you keep them from totally destroying your environment and using up all of your water and providing enough electricity for them and everything that comes with that. It's just such a very, very complex issue. So I am continuing to look at it and very interested in the continuation of that conversation that you and Harley had on Tuesday, which I guess will take place in a couple of weeks.
I think we may be able to do it next week. I'm waiting for a
Nice.
response, but I usually have Harley on Tuesdays, but on this occasion, I'm going to try to have him back on next Thursday, because the Tuesdays are all took up.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, we've got this Monday. My new friend, MC Armstrong, who I met in conjunction with the JFK Historical Group conference that I went to in Dallas 3 weeks ago. And he is a real researcher, a journalist, a writer. He's written a book about one of the WMD episodes, some kind of horrible gas or otherwise a burning that happened to many thousands of people. Is not talked about as in a place called Haditha. But he's also a strong proponent of the LBJ did it school. And as I said to you last week, when I was there, it was like everybody in Texas was like, yeah, it was LBJ. It was LBJ.
Wow.
So new evidence has come out, a video discussing LBJ's henchman, Mac Wallace, allegedly being ordered to do the hit on Kennedy. How does that fit in with all the other work we've been doing at Undo the Coup? Well, there's a lot of theories out there, and the facts are few and far between. So you have to kind of build your own case. But this is why my whole hope in producing these Undo the Coup series is to say, look, let's stop trying to figure out who Mr. Big was and look at what's obviously the case, and that is there was a cover-up by every significant branch of our government. And that cover-up was a coup d'etat. And from there, I argue that the citizens of the United States, we should not be responsible for what's happened since then, because it's them. It's not us. We didn't do all these things. And especially with regard to the economy, would JFK or his legitimate successors have allowed us to get up to our necks to the extent of $38 trillion that we'll never be able to pay back?
But we've allowed our government to do it. I mean, this is government by the people. So we have sat back and allowed them to create this unfathomable debt. So
Right.
what is our responsibility?
To call that fraud and to break it down and to say, look, the American people, full faith and credit should not apply to debts incurred by the coup d'etat government. Now, we do have to do something about the debt,
Right.
but the answer to that is to force them through a bankruptcy proceeding and to get into it and see, are these derivatives really worth what they say on the face of them? Let's get into it and try to get a lot of this big monkey off our back so that the future of our country looks bright. Right now, we are continually increasing the percentage of our gross national product that goes to debt service, and that's where the problem is, in my view.
Yep. And it gets higher and higher and higher. Well, I have to give Corky credit for this because he had a similar reaction to you.
Oh, yeah.
Old McDonald had a computer, AIEOO.
Yeah,
AIEOO.
it is ridiculous. What is it called? AIE.
It's an executive order about AI, so I was calling it AIEO.
Well, here's another aspect of that. To me, it reminds me of the fight led by Sullivan and Cromwell, our famous law firm with the Dulles brothers in the first half of the 20th century and continuing after that, to unify the commercial codes of all the states. And they did that
Wow.
by sending lawyers into each of the state capitals and persuading somebody that it was a good idea to have a uniform commercial code along with all the other states. And so sooner or later, they were successful, and now we have a universal commercial code, the UCC, that governs all transactions in our country. I think, unless they're just within a state or something small.
Right.
But
Interstate commerce.
all interstate commerce,
Yeah.
which is huge. So that was done for the benefit of the already elite owners of corporations
Mhm.
and to facilitate them working together for mutual benefit.
Well, I think that that's part of this EO is because regulations that take place in one state can affect can affect activity in another state, that this relates to interstate commerce. And I think that that's how the administration is justifying this EO, and that's how they'll justify it in court.
And the other example is healthcare. When the Supreme Court said, the states are the constitutional authority for the healthcare within their state. The federal government is not the constitutional health authority. It's the states. So is this another case where we're going to start?
And could that be a precedent?
Are we turning the wheel back the other way and saying, no, wait a minute, let's re-empower the state governments to do things
Right.
like regulate AI. I myself, I think we do need to have a uniform regulation of AI in the country because of just the incredible mess it would make if you couldn't, if you're broadcasting to Maryland, but you can't say it in Virginia. I don't think that's a solvable problem. So I think we are going to end up there with a uniform regulation of AI if we have to regulate it, which apparently we do.
Yeah, well, some states have already started passing laws, and the executive order actually references the state of Colorado, which has some kind of regulation that requires any AI to take into account groups that have been marginalized or discriminated against, and that it's that kind of regulation that this EO is designed to completely prevent. So I agree with you. There needs to be, because if I use AI in Maryland, and then the way AI responds has to be different than if I'm using it in Virginia, creates a lot of complications. On the other hand, do we want AI to be unrestricted in any way? And that's, I think, what some people are concerned about, is that you'll get AI run amok, and, will these federal regulations put restrictions? One of the things that the EO also specifically mentions is danger to children. And, AI needs to function in a way that is safe for children. It also mentions the building of data centers, but there was some reference to regulating the permitting process that confused me, that wasn't very clear to me, because I just read through it once. But anyway, but I did stop and read the whole executive order when I saw in the news that this had been signed, because it is difficult to get these sources of news to just report what's in an EO rather than to immediately start quoting this talking head and that talking head and this one and that one. And so then you're reading opinions instead of facts. But it's easier just to go read it myself.
Let's take some comments.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Garden Girl says AI and Palantir will be the issue that unites all Americans. I don't know. I don't know that there's any issue that can unite all Americans.
I'd like to hear more, Garden Girl. I don't know how that works. I mean, I will tell you this morning, there's a musician that I have Facebook friends with, And this musician is one of the only musicians anywhere on my Facebook that takes a conservative position on things.
Whoa.
Yeah, and so he was commenting, and he just got slimed by his responses because everybody else in that world does what I call the traditional music world, where you have jazzers and contra dancers and people that do little gigs and that kind of milieu that I grew up in. I was one of them,
Right.
for 40 years. I still kind of am. But these folks have taken the position that unless you first utter the words "Orange Man bad," you can't talk to them.
Right.
If you think that MAGA is a legitimate political movement, then they won't talk to you. It's like, no, you guys are outside, too far outside. Well, that to me is the psyop that has been applied to our friends on the left, and Orange Man bad, Trump derangement syndrome, as people on the right call it, is a real thing. And they don't seem to understand that America depends upon politics to survive. If we don't do politics, then it's just a free-for-all grab for power. We've got to find a way to break down this wall that has been built between people on the left and anybody that's has made the decision to vote for Trump because they just could not stand Biden any longer, or Harris either. And to me, that's a very legitimate choice. But to them, it's like, no. And I have been shut right out of conversations in my
Yeah.
Facebook. I mean, I remember this guy, if I didn't say that, then his response was, well, I'm unfriending you. You are whatever, and I'm
Right.
never gonna talk to you again.
Right.
And I said, well, okay, but I don't think the rest of America is going to go along with this for forever. So maybe that's where Garden Girl is thinking that these issues are going to unite America. Let's see if she has any more of a comment on that, because
Not on that. I don't.
okay.
I don't.
Well, that's all I had to say on that. I mean, closed-minded is what all the Sun is saying. That's exactly it.
Yes.
And they're closing their minds intentionally, contrary to everything that they should have been taught in their schooling. You got to keep an open mind, especially when half the country is taking a position that's against your position. You've got to try to understand why. But they've been taught, no, don't even inquire, just walk away.
Now, I'm not clear on this comment from Brightmore.
Can you share it?
Well, I'm trying. Every so often, StreamYard doesn't want me to share.
Oh,
And I click and click and click. There we go. Are the data centers partly a front for the implementation of CBDC? And I'm not sure what that refers to. Are you?
central bank digital currency.
Oh, okay. With so many AI providers, why the need to build local data plantations? Well, the need is the enormous amount of energy that AI takes. They just need tons and tons of data centers. And rather than put them all in one place, because it would take up an entire state, they sprinkle them throughout here and there and everywhere, because you got to have lots and lots and lots of storage for all of this AI. So in order to have all of that storage, then you need all of the energy too to go with it. So AI is using massive amounts of memory.
And groundwater to cool
Mhm.
their plants.
Absolutely.
And that really bothers me. Not only taking up the huge amounts of acreage. And Virginia is a great example, but then turning the the streams out of the mountains into a source for them to build their data centers. I just don't like it, and I don't think it's sustainable. That to me, AI is in a kind of a infancy stage right now, where it makes a lot of mistakes. And I've been harping on it
Exactly.
for
You've been
weeks.
spending a lot of time showing that.
Yeah, because it has a program within it that tries to please you and keep you stuck in the conversation. So in order to please you, it will try to psych out what you want to hear. And then they'll tell it to you. Whether it's true or not doesn't matter,
Right.
because they're following their algorithm to give you something that will keep you engaged with the platform.
And by keeping you engaged, that's where the developers make money, though I'm not entirely clear what that's all about. And I think that, again, goes back to that discussion you had with Harley about AI and the economy, because the tech bubble that happened in the 90s and early 2000s, all had to do with all of this massive investment that was going into technology and the internet with no return on investment. And now the same thing is happening with AI. So keeping you engaged helps to build that return on investment, but the investment is still huge, absolutely enormous, this AI economy.
It's going to keep getting bigger too, because people in those positions to make those investments are convinced that AI is just now at the very infancy of its potential, and that by building enough data centers, they're going to be able to control the information market.
Right.
So that, and that's why they want you hooked on it, was because whenever you have to know something, I wonder what year was the Crimean War. What are you going to do? You're going to go to your bookshelf and get a history book out and flip a few pages and see if you can find the answer, or go to Encyclopedia Britannica if you have one. No, you're going to go to Grok. You're going to go to ChatGPT, because it's a simple question. What were the years of the Crimean War? They're not going to get that wrong. But what they are doing is building trust, building your ability to stop using your traditional research tools and just rely on Grok or ChatGPT or all of the other ones.
Well, and then taking a fact like what year was the Crimean War is fairly simple, and something that we've been able to Google or use a search engine, whatever you use, for many, many years. But then you go to AI and say, well, what are the long-term consequences of the Crimean War? And then you start getting analysis that is based on something entirely different than just plain facts. And that's where AI becomes a more powerful tool, or a more dangerous tool, or a more fallible tool, depending on how you look at it.
And then it also gives them an opportunity to propagandize you. So if you say, when was the Crimean War, they can come back and say, well, the Crimean War was caused by the Russians, who were, trying to take over the Crimea or the Turkey, and they're really bad guys. And so they can spin the story in order to get you to start thinking, yeah, Russia's bad. We don't like Russia.
Exactly. And that's where it gets a little bit controversial, which is why I think, the controversial nature of AI is going to continue to something that we'll be struggling with as a community, as a culture.
Do you think Russia's aim is to take over Western Europe?
Do I think that?
Yeah.
No.
A lot of people do.
Yes.
Why?
Why do I think it?
No, why do they think it?
Because they're told to think that.
By their computers.
All right.
By their news sources, by their national...
By their news sources, yes.
Like BBC or Deutsche Welle, or, in France, whatever it is. The official story is that Russia is this rapacious monster that wants to take over Western Europe. And as long as they had Biden, they were fine. They could sell that. But Trump has made a huge difference. And now I don't think that Europe is going to be able to sustain this war very long if Trump really does officially withdraw our support. There's so many things that Trump could do to stop this war. One of them would be to make sure to just tell Elon to shut down all the satellite feeds over Ukraine until the war is over, and many other things that we could do. But the answer always is a question of how can our military industrial complex make more money with this situation?
Exactly, because that's what it always boils down to, is making more money. You got to follow the money.
Yeah.
Garden Girl 24 says, correct, John. It's slow capture to have us accept AI. The elite want to know everything about us: health, financial, social connections, etc. The prison planet.
That's right. And, this was 4 or 5 years ago where I did a series of shows with Ilana Freeland, the author of 3 important books on the question of the ionized sky. Briefly, you know what ionizing is. That's when you have an extra electron that's stuck on your atom, and that electron wants to grab onto something, and so it can create flows of energy. I think also they can control these things that they're calling atmospheric rivers, but without having ionized the sky, they couldn't do it, because the sky itself, that doesn't have a polarity. It's simply air. But if they can leave a bunch of ions everywhere, then those can be manipulated with, with energy, with force. And that's, I think, is another way to lock us down, is to have, our atmosphere a closed thing that they completely control. I know that sounds far-fetched right now, but it is certain.
Well,
that,
Brightmore suggests that could solve the problem of the massive water needs for AI. Uncle Sam will cloud seed steady rainfalls over the data centers.
yeah,
There you go.
yeah, and build atmospheric rivers that go, to places like Saudi Arabia in the desert, where they're going to build other stuff. And who knows? I also believe that they probably, and Elon is talking about this, about putting servers in orbit upstairs, so that the whole thing is beyond our reach to, if we did want to revolt against the data centers, we couldn't get to them because they'd be out in outer space floating around the Earth. I think he's talking about going in that direction, building AI in orbit.
Wow.
Yep.
Garden Girl 24 says, I'm worried about our youth. They are totally captured by their phones, using electronic transfers, believing the messaging. And I'm going to underscore that, believing the messaging. We at least grew up in a different age. But, as we age, there are fewer and fewer and fewer of us and more of them. And those young people are going to have an entirely different perspective on the world, because they just grew up with this environment, this digital environment, and connections that are entirely digital and not real life.
Well, I guess that's why I do this show, Marcia. I want there to be a record of thinking outside the box. That's what I think we do here, is we try to think outside the box to get to the real solutions, instead of just accepting, you can have chocolate or vanilla,
Right.
No, I want to have my own decision as to, what color my ice cream is.
Exactly. Brightmore says, oh, that wasn't the one. Sorry. Our AI providers are exploring if quantum computing can be used, which would, pun intended, be a quantum leap in efficiency. And that efficiency thing, that's what Harley was talking about with the economy and creating efficiency. But those who argue for the AI economy say that it will increase efficiency. I saw an article that said that according to LinkedIn estimates that now, and I don't know where they get their information from, other than the information from their members, but that 1 in 5 jobs today did not exist 25 years ago in the year 2000. And there is some truth to that, that this AI economy is creating all of these jobs that never existed before, which is, one of the arguments that we don't need to worry about AI taking our jobs, because AI also creates new jobs, things that people weren't doing in the past, just like all technology has. I mean, I think these, computers have created more jobs in the last 3 decades, 4 decades than were ever lost, but there were jobs that were lost as the result of computers. So, we continue to have that debate, but yeah, efficiency, that's going to be the support
Yeah,
for enhancing AI and for,
exactly.
yeah.
And the more data centers they have, the more efficient they'll be, and the more likely it'll be that we just throw away our books. Why do we need books when we can just go to AI?
As Corky puts it, epidemic of uncritical thinking.
Oh, bravo.
Nice.
I have to give
Exactly.
you a round of applause for that one, my friend.
1, 2, 3.
That's the wrong one.
Yay.
Yay. An epidemic of uncritical thinking. That is so well put, Corky. Thank you.
And designed to be that way.
Corky adds, and efficacy. Yeah, efficiency and efficacy. Ooh. Brightmore says, our devices are tuned to auto-tune our behavior.
Auto-tune came along, 10 years ago, 15 years ago. You could see a program that would actually give you a graphic chart with little bubbles that represented the notes that were played or that you sang. And you can then push a button and ask it to put that all in tune, put it in standard tuning, because, if you sing, you're likely not to be exactly on the right frequency all the time, but you just push a button and say, fix this. And that's where a lot of pop music is now, is that they're using techniques like auto-tune. You have no idea what the artist really sounded like. It's all done with computers.
Yeah, and I'm thinking that there are some artists that start that way. It's not that they are
Milli Vanilli. Remember Milli
well,
Vanilli?
that was a whole different case.
Oh. But that's the thing, is that our generation, the ones that laughed at the original generation of Saturday Night Live, the ones that used to smoke doobies in the dorm room. This whole generation is dying.
Are they not smoking doobies in the dorm room anymore?
No, they don't have to.
Oh, how sad.
Yeah.
Oh, well.
I don't know. Maybe they are, but that
We don't have college age people around us, so who knows what goes on in
they've
college.
got their vapes now, so they
I see.
they just step out in the back but I don't want to get off on cannabis, although it has been a subject of Trump's recent speech. But I did want to say that we were critical thinkers, and that's why there became a marijuana culture, was because you could sit around with people and spit out the ideas that you couldn't share in class or with your parents or somebody else. And a good friend of mine used to say, pot helps you see through the bullshit.
Nicely put. Yeah.
And I think that there's truth in that.
I think so too. Absolutely. I mean, I can think back to some very interesting and intellectual conversations that took place around me.
Uh-huh.
When I was that age.
Yeah. So our cynicism came from the news, from the Vietnam War, from Nixon, from all of these horrible politicians and all of this stuff that we had to live with. So, Timothy Leary said, tune in, turn on, and drop out.
Yeah. Garden Girl makes a good point that they're not smoking doobies. They're eating edibles.
Edibles. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I just kind of mourn the passing of a ritual, you know.
Well, it's all part of what everybody has been talking about here in the chat, that it has to do with education and thinking and making connections to each other, making connections to nature, which all the sun pointed out, you know, and oops, sorry, that's the wrong one. No experience learning for the children with connections to nature, says all the sun. And that's it. It's all about explore critical thinking, you know, exploring thoughts, exploring ideas, you know, imagining if you took an idea and run with it, and where could this idea go? And innovation, innovation for the sake of innovation, or innovation for the sake of developing something. But, you know, I think that what happens is that today's innovators are the ones who get rich, but they don't want to share. So they don't want too many people also innovating.
There are significant exceptions. I have an old music friend who, his wife and he run a education camp for children in West Virginia.
Mm-hmm.
It's called Wind Dance Farm, and a worthy charity if anybody wants to support the bringing up kids to understand nature. You know, teaching them what the tree, the leaves, and how to make things, and probably survival skills, as well as just how to actually do things with wood, with natural environment, the way that, I mean, until 150 years ago, every kid grew up that way, and to lose that is what we're kind of bemoaning here. So I say I'm glad that there are some people out there, and I'm sure that's one of many that are dedicating their lives to giving that type of support to children who should be in nature and not in the classroom all the time.
Or not, you know, looking at the screen all the time.
Amen to that, but I'm guilty of it. I'm a screen addict myself.
Well, yeah. Yeah. Well, Garden Girl says our food garden group calls it forest bathing. And yeah, I've heard about forest bathing, and it actually sounds interesting. And Corky mentions earthing. And yes, I actually don't do that enough. Go outside and just walk around in the grass in my bare feet, especially this time of year. But I should do that more.
Yeah, out in 33-degree weather, go ahead.
Yeah, I don't think so. But in the summertime or in the spring and fall, when we take Toto to the park, sometimes I like to just sit on the grass in the park and take my shoes off and scrunch up my toes in the grass.
Well, I've been doing a lot of research and reading since I got back from Dallas, you know, with new ideas and things. And I just want to share this book here, the Scorzeni papers. I am finding it fascinating. I was going to do a show on it last week, and I said, wait a minute, I'm not up to speed yet. So I'll be studying this book this weekend. There's some fascinating connections between Otto Skorzeny, the famous Nazi covert operations chief, and Wild Bill Donovan of the OSS, you know, working together. Are you kidding? No, it's right here in the book. And the idea that these covert action specialists from Nazi times were primary candidates for the Operation Paperclip. So, you know, was there any hesitation at all to say, wait a minute, these are Nazis. Wait a minute, these are the people that put the Jews into the concentration camps and the Holocaust. And we're working with them? Apparently we were, and we still are.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm going to be spending my research time over the weekend. What you got planned for the weekend, Marcia?
What do I have planned for the weekend? Nothing really. I'm going to be, catching up on my reading. I still have stacks and stacks of various books that I am working my way through. Maybe do a little bit of cooking. saw a recipe today for a pumpkin bread that I was thinking you might enjoy.
I would
And you know how much I enjoy cooking, so I might do that. But yeah,
tell you guys, I'm the luckiest guy to have a wife that loves to cook good, nutritious meals for me. And, part of the benefit of it is that I am healthy. Part of the benefit of it is that it supports my immune system as I fight cancer. And part of the benefit of it is that I had no idea that vegetables and fruits and breads and grains could make such delicious meals. So I'm really grateful, Marcia.
well, this recipe calls for beans in the pumpkin bread,
Yeah,
and everybody who's tried it is saying it's yummy. And so there you go. That's an example of eating in a way that is delicious and incredibly healthy.
incredibly healthy. It's wonderful. So I am very grateful, Marcia, to you and to everyone who's here this morning, as well as be watching the replay. Everybody that has supported us over the past 7 years of broadcasting now, uh, I, I couldn't do it without you. We do have expenses, and your contributions to the Patreon go a long way. I buy books at an incredible rate, so I'm often spending money on them. It's just a privilege to be doing this, what we're doing here at McDuff Lives, as well as satisfying my need to uncover and tell my father's story.
Well, thank you too, John, for letting me be part of this. And thank you to everybody out there for letting me be part of this and for accepting me as part of this McDuff Lives team.
Yeah, you're in. You are in for sure. And
And thank you all for your support for all of it.
all right, I think we'll have to leave it there. It's about noon. And Marcia, thanks again. Thanks, everybody. I will see you Monday with Matt Armstrong, and then Tuesday with Hervoye Morich, who I'm looking forward to getting up to date with what he's been working on. A very interesting and intelligent man with an incredible background. So
Indeed.
Hervoye Morich next Tuesday at 11. All right, have
Thanks,
a great weekend.
everybody.
Bye-bye.